A triple header this weekend out in Grand Prairie at Lone Star, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday racing, of course. We've got some stakes action for you coming up on Sunday. Want to welcome in the man that just about does it all, the man who calls races, handicaps, and he's the friendliest guy in town. Jim Byers, a salute to you, sir.
How are you doing today?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's really the card coming up this weekend at Lone Star. I find it very interesting and challenging. But that fifth race on Sunday, the Texas Stallion Stymie Division, tell us about it.
Well, it's an interesting race in that the Texas Stallion Stakes, is, as the sound indicates, it's for Texas-based stallions who've been nominated to the program. Then the foals, whether they're bred in Texas or not, are nominated. And there's a Colton Gelding division and a filly division at all three tracks in Texas, Retama, Sam Houston, and here at Lone Star. And so in the wintertime, they ran a division of this up at Sam Houston, the Jim's Orbit, and it's a sprint race, and it came down to Direct Dial, trained by Steve Asmussen, winning, and a horse by the name of Galactica ran third in that race, and they're going to meet up again in this Stymie division of the Texas Stallion Stakes on Sunday. It's the fifth race on the program. I think it's a really interesting match race between these two, and this is not to discount Silas, Final Arrow, Swift Chalk, and Silver Luke Silver, but I really think that you've got two horses with high speed in Direct Dial and Galactica. Galactica has already been around two turns here. He did it in an allowance back on opening weekend. He held on by a head over a horse who was a bit of a long shot, who had experience going two turns, and Galactica did not. And he's taking on Direct Dial, who's the morning line favorite. Direct Dial just took on Super Mason, a really, really nice older horse who is especially fond of this racetrack. I actually picked Direct Dial a couple of weeks ago in the Bluebonnet Stakes here, and that was not a tremendous pick because Super Mason is tough to beat on this track. But I think it's a match between these two. I prefer Galactica just because he has proven that he can go two turns. Direct Dial's an awfully nice sprinter and very good hands. So I see it really as a match race between these two, and I'm pretty sure that's probably why it's the fifth race, because it is a smaller field to keep it out of the late pick 4, which coming up on Sunday will be on races 7 through 10.
Well, again, as you alluded to the two horses that stand out, you touched on the horse to the inside in Silas, who will be ridden by Luis Quinones, and this one coming in for Gerald and Brody Veal. I'm always a believer that a sharp horse can beat a good horse any day of the week. I think what I admire most about this particular individual is it'll be career start number 14, so a lot of seasoning. And when you look at the dynamic, it appears as if this barn has this horse's number. And I know from a numbers perspective, speaking of stats and statistics and all, very difficult to maybe split those two. But what do you think's made the difference with Silas in those most recent races?
Well, you know, the thing about Silas, he came out opening day in the very first race of the meet and beat a horse who was really highly regarded that day. I'm not really sure why, but there was a horse in there by the name of Nasty Critter and a couple of other horses who were basically claiming types. But Silas came in, ran on from behind and beat them, came back in another sprint race against Texas Breds the following week, or 10 days later, I guess, and won again. So I think, you know, the track has been a bit on the speed favoring side here. I think it's fair to say through the first month. Horses have come from out of it, but you know, it's kind of taken a little bit of a special situation for horses to come from way, way out of it on this main track. And I think Silas has caught a couple of pace scenarios that have been to his favor. And we'll see how he likes the two turns. He's been two turns one time on the turf down at Retama. But he certainly is sharp, and his speed figures are improving. And, you know, he is definitely a horse that I think, you know, might be. I don't think he's going to be able to get near the lead with the speed of the top two in here, Direct Dial and Galactica, but I think maybe a horse like that, you know, might find himself in a little bit of a stalking position.
All right. Well, indeed, it's a challenging leg, being the fact that that's the start of the 20-cent Fortune 6. But, Jim, as always, we appreciate your insight here on TVG. Always look forward to your not only your handicapping, but your announcing. You do a wonderful job, and the passion speaks out when you're taking us through these races.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that. Always admire the work you and your colleagues do out there, and it's nice to be able to help.
Hoorah. All right, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and looking forward to the Texas Stallion Stakes Stymie Division, and one that sets up nicely for the boys come Sunday at Lone Star.